What up? Welcome aboard Ahoy, a Disney cruise planning podcast presented by vacationkingdoms.com. Whether you're a first time sailor or a seasoned cruiser, this podcast is your ultimate destination. My name is Connor Brown. I'm a frequent cruiser, a seasoned travel agent specializing in Disney Cruise Line vacations, and I've got plenty of insider tips, insights, and firsthand experiences to share with you. So listen in and become a Disney Cruise Line expert before you even step aboard your next Disney ship. If you want even more Disney cruise content in between episodes, be sure to head to vacationkingdoms.com to learn more. Mabrika, which I believe is Bahamian for hello, salutations, all those sorts of things. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, for those of you listening, yes, we do put all of our episodes over on YouTube. We have a video version over on YouTube. You can watch them. Go over to vacationkingdoms.com/YouTube to go right to our channel. But for those watching on YouTube, you're probably saying, wow, Connor, you look sensational in that fedora. To which I would respond, I know, I know, I look great in this hat. Typically, I'm not a fedora kind of guy. I don't know if I give off a fedora kind of vibe, to be honest with you. But if you look closely, you can see that this fedora says lookout key at Lighthouse Point, which is the perfect fedora to wear for this very special occasion. Because I just sailed aboard the first cruise on Disney Cruise Line to their newest private destination, Lookout Key at Lighthouse Point. I've done some very cool Disney and very cool travel related things in my life, but this experience, getting to go to a new private destination, to be the first cruise, the first guests to really ever go to this new private destination, this is close to the top of that really cool experience list that I have. I'm so very grateful for being able to go with such a great group of human beings. And I'm so excited to share my initial impressions of this private destination with you. But first things first, let's go over just a little bit, kind of the logistics, not the logistics, the breakdown of what this particular cruise was. So it was a 3-night cruise. I call those the short cruises because they're blink and it's over in the matter of seconds. 3-night cruise on the Disney Magic. That was another really cool thing. Going on the original Disney Cruise Line ship, the Disney Magic, which I hadn't been on in 18 years. I know, crazy. But being on that ship, to be able to be the first ship going to this new private destination, that was extra special. 3 nights, Disney Magic, sailing out of Fort Lauderdale in the new Disney Cruise Line terminal that they have at the Port of Everglades. I'll share my experience about what it was like being on the Magic in a later episode. For now, it's all about Lookout Key. So typically, when you arrive in port to whatever port you're arriving to, you get there, you dock, and then pretty soon after, you're able to go ashore. Guests are able to go ashore. As a good example of this, on our 3-night cruise, we stopped we got on the ship first night, the second day, the full day after. Our first stop was Lookout Key, and then after that, we were in Nassau in the Bahamas. That was our itinerary. But for the Nassau day, we docked probably a little bit after 8 a.m., and then we were able to get off the ship around 8:30, like very quickly. And that's usually how it goes typically for any port that you arrive into. For Lookout Key, it was different. We arrived and we docked by 8 a.m., even a little bit earlier than that, to be honest. Arrived, docked at 8 a.m., but we weren't allowed to leave the ship until around 10:30 a.m., even a little bit after that. 2 main reasons for being held on the ship for so long. First and foremost was this was the first cruise ship to ever dock there. So Disney had to get a ton of provisions off the ship, a ton of supplies off the ship, and transport those things to various parts of Lookout Key. Secondly, the crew of the Disney Magic had never been there before either. Some higher ups had been there, like our cruise director mentioned. He had been there a couple weeks prior, but the main cast members, the main crew members, had never been on this island. To compare that to Castaway Key, Disney's original private destination, one thing that happens there is on the ship, you have your servers, your bartenders, your recreational guests, your recreational crew members. All of those crew members, not only do they work on the ship, but when they pull in to the private island, Castaway Key, they actually get off the ship for the day and they work on the island as well. So they head to the bars if they're bartenders, food areas if they're servers, recreation areas if they work in recreation, lifeguards, those sorts of things. So a vast majority of the operations of Castaway Key is performed by crew members coming off of whatever ship has docked there that day. It's kind of the same with Lookout Key as well. They needed to get all the people, all the crew member who were working on the island off the ship, but more importantly, Disney needed those extra hours to get everyone familiar with the island and get them in the right place. Since this was the first time for the crew as well, they didn't know necessarily where they needed to go. They got a lot of training from what we've been told prior to arrival, but it was still their first time there. They had to get their systems in place. They had to understand the operations, all sorts of things like that. And also keep in mind, it was the first time docking a ship there. So that was a new process for the captain of the ship, the engineering teams, those sorts of things. Because of that uniqueness and because of the name, which of the itinerary, the name of the itinerary was literally Lookout Key Preview Cruise. That's what it was when you booked it. That's what it was on your cruise documents, Lookout Key Preview Cruise. Because it was a preview cruise, because there was so much going on, because so many people had never been there before. This was their first time crew-wise stepping on the island. This episode, it's not going to be a review of Lookout Key, okay? It's not going to be a review of the island, but it will be kind of sharing my first impressions of the island. I'm going to kind of talk about the layout of it, some initial pros and cons, but just like you can't review a restaurant the first night it opens, you can't review essentially what is a resort the first day it's opened, especially since that first day it was home to 1,000 people. None of them had been there prior to that. So you got to keep that in mind when we're talking about all of these things. And if you're reviewing it, it seems just kind of silly to me to already say, hey, here's my review, when it's really just in its infancy of being open. So my initial impression, first and foremost, if you take anything away from this episode, take away this. Lookout Key is absolutely beautiful. We'll talk about it a lot, but there's a lot of natural beauty that is has an emphasis put upon on this private destination. The beaches are glorious. The way that they have the structures, the covered areas, the beach itself, it's all set up very, very, very nicely. It's beautiful. It's kind of almost picturesque when you think of an island destination. It's fantastic. Logistically, it does have some challenges, and there are some kinks to work out. I have the utmost faith in Disney that those challenges are going to be overcome, that they're going to be able to work those kinks out. With that being said, even with those kind of things and challenges that we run into, Lookout Key has incredible potential. A lot of veteran Disney cruisers, they're going to just immediately compare this to Castaway Key and where it differs, and many just won't like it because it is not Castaway Key. Because in reality, people don't like change, right? Even though there's been plenty of clamor for this new private destination, and people booking just to see what it's like and to see this change. They tell themselves that we're okay for change, we're excited for change, but then once they get something that's different than what they know, they immediately back off just because it is different. That's human nature. That is innate. That is what it is. But I will say, comparing Lookout Key to Castaway Key, it's going to happen, of course, but some context needs to be provided around their differences first and why their logistics can't really be compared because they're very two distinct destinations, but also two very distinct setups that allow for certain things to occur at each island versus, being able to occur at both destinations. So, Castaway Key is its own island. Castaway Key is the name of the entire island. It probably has another name. Disney gave it Castaway Key, but that is the island itself. Actually, I do know it has another name. It's just escaping me right now. But Castaway Key, its own island that Disney has a 99-year lease on. It bought a 99-year lease to Castaway Key from the Bahamian government. They've been sending their cruise ships to Castaway Key since 1998, since the cruise line debuted. So, for that entire time, that 26 years, the island, the dock, infrastructure, it was all built specifically by Disney for Disney and their guests. If they ran into any challenges with the operations of it, they could make those changes that impacted their guests, what they believed, for the better, because they had full reign over Castaway Key, and they do for the next 74 years, however long they have. They control it all. Disney, when they decided to expand the cruise line brand, the cruise line company, by adding on more ships, they knew, hey, because Castaway is small, because we can only put one ship there at a time, we're adding new ships to the fleet. We need another destination in the Caribbean because we're going to sail in that area year round. We need another destination for one of the other cruise ships to go to, or a couple of the other cruise ships to go to, so that each one can kind of get their own private destination. What Disney really wanted probably was a Castaway version too, right? Very, very similar. They wanted to buy a long-term lease probably to another island and control it all because that's what they're used to. That's what they're familiar with. That's what they had seen success with at Castaway for so long. That was what they wanted to do. They were met with a lot of opposition and a lot of pushback from Bahamian residents. There's plenty of cruise lines that have private islands in the Bahamas, in the Caribbean. I think at this point, a lot of locals might have been getting fed up because the cruise ship comes into the destination and leaves and doesn't really help the local economy as much as it might think that it needs to. There's probably a lot of other underlying, opposition reasons to that for whatever. But Disney still wanted something in the Bahamas. Disney worked with the Bahamian government and they came up with a compromise and a solution. And that compromise came to fruition in the form of Lookout Key. So, Lookout Key at Lighthouse Point, it's not a private island. So, if anyone says this is Disney's newest private island destination, it is not. Castaway Key is a private island. There's nothing else on that island that isn't operated by Disney. Lookout Key at Lighthouse Point is not a private island, but rather a section of an already existing island, the island of Eleuthera. Eleuthera has its own residents, a local community, that sorts of things. The Bahamian government has essentially formed a partnership with Disney for Lookout Key. The area is still Bahamian owned, but Disney is able to build on it within reason. So I think what this was kind of a joint partnership thing is Disney probably put up the money to build all of the things, and the Bahamian government let this happen, let this thing occur. But the two huge aspects of the island are one, celebrating the Bahamian culture, and two, preserving the natural resources on Eleuthera. Everything that occurs on the island, every building that's built on the island, every piece of infrastructure that's laid on this section of the island, it can all be rooted back to that. Those two things are very, very, very important. Celebrating the Bahamas, preserving the natural resources. That's why when comparing the two, Castaway to Lookout, it's really important to provide that context. Knowing that Disney is in full control of Castaway in its own island, and Lookout Key is being controlled by a Bahamian and Disney partnership. The latter, the Bahamian and Disney partnership, it's not a bad thing. In fact, I think it provides for some very cool experiences that could never happen on Castaway, but it is just different than what DCL, Disney Cruise Line veterans, might be used to. So, with that context provided, let's get into my first impressions of the island. When you disembark, when you get off the cruise ship, you are met with a very, very long pier you have to walk down to get to land. That walk to get from the ship to the entrance of Lookout Key, it's a little over a half a mile. I know this can be daunting for some. If you do have mobility issues, what you can do, go to guest services when you get on the ship and schedule a ride right then and there from the ship to the entrance of Lookout Key. You'll be greeted with a golf cart. You'll probably have a time scheduled, those sorts of things. That's what Disney is saying, and that's how we saw it play out in this first trip to Lighthouse Point. They'll probably get even better than that. They'll probably get better with the requests, honoring them, those sorts of things. But that's what we've heard, that if that is too long of a walk, if it's too daunting for you, go to guest services or even call in before, have it added to your account, and then double check at guest services that was accommodated for. In all honesty, the walk is not too bad, right? It's straightforward. It's new paved, fresh concrete. The unfortunate part is the sun. The sun can be rough because there's absolutely no shade on the walk from the ship to the entrance of Lookout Key. Personally, I expect that to change fairly soon, if not already in the works, probably. I've heard rumblings of that something like canopies or something else might be getting added to cover certain areas of the walkway. That would be a huge, huge, huge relief. And I think everyone would be very appreciative of having that come to that pier. But why the long pier? Why would Disney open this new destination and sign off on this long, long pier? It all comes back to the conservation of the land. Putting the dock that close to land would mean dredging up vast amounts of sand in the ocean, just so that the ship could fit there without hitting the without marooning itself. Is that what it is? Without sanding itself, whatever it might be. If you want to protect the land, you can't dredge all of that sand in order to put the ship as close as possible to the entrance of Lookout Key. So the pier was built to a point where the ship could fit without any of the resources, I guess you could say, being impacted beyond just building the pier itself. Once you arrive at the end of the pier, you actually enter the entrance of Lookout Key. And this entrance has a few things, has a very, very small store, more like a kiosk, I guess you could say, kind of that you see at the mall, of merchandise and sundries, those sorts of things. It has a bar that also serves coffee, which is nice. It has a bathroom, excursion check-in area, and this section is also host to the family cabanas. But the most important part of the entrance to Lookout Key is the tram stop. The main beach of Lookout Key is actually a little farther away than just the entrance to Lookout Key. You can walk to the main beach area. I don't recommend it. It's pretty dusty right now because there are still constructions going on at a lot of these things. The tram was driving very slow. I don't know if it was first day and they were like, you can't go above 5 miles an hour or whatever it was. But it took almost 15 minutes for the tram to get from the entrance of Lookout Key to the main beach destination on Lookout Key. So it's quite the process, right? It's quite the process to get to that main area. If you're a family, expect the whole process, from leaving the ship to getting to the main beach area to take about 45 minutes. 45 minutes, which is unfortunate for sure, but it is what it is. Because once you get there, once you go through all those logistical things, it is totally worth it. Beautiful, almost jaw-dropping beauty. Very, very, very awesome. The area, this main beach area, is massive. The tram will essentially drop you in the middle of everything. When you get off the tram, right in front of you, there's a store, of course. It's called Disney Tings. Not Disney Things, Disney Tings, which I guess is playing on a Bahamian accent. So Disney Tings. That's as soon as you enter. This is the main place where you can buy Lookout Key merchandise. Lookout Key merchandise is not sold on the ship. So if you're looking to buy one of these sick looking fedoras that I've got on right now, that's gonna be your best place to purchase that Disney Tings on the on land. There, you're not going to be able to find any Lookout Key merchandise on the ships. Right next to it, there's also a store with Bahamian merchants there. They show up every day to sell their goods, called Treasures of Eleuthera. After you get off the tram, if you go right, you'll get to True True Barbecue. True is like a Bahamian saying, like, oh, yeah, I got it. True Barbecue. And there are two bars closer to the water on the right side of the beach area. Also on the right side is Sebastian's Cove water play area. That's nice. It has some canopies that are shaded. It's really, really fun. I walked through it. The kids that were there seem to be having an absolute blast. If you get off the tram and you kind of stick more towards the middle of the beach area, there's Rush Out, Gush Out, which is a family water play area. There's some really fast slides, more water elements, kind of like a water jungle gym. It's not in the water, it's just before the main beach. But people are having a ton of fun in there as well. Also in the middle of the beach area is Goombay Cultural Center. That's where daily entertainment events happen. Character greetings take place there. When you get off the tram, if you were to go left, you would get True 2 barbecue. So if you're familiar with Castaway Key, you have Cookies and Cookies 2. Both of these destinations serve the exact same food. It's just the proximity on where you put yourself on the beach to which one you're going to go to. That's really the reason that they have both of them, just to service as many people as possible without having to walk across the entirety of the property. So you have you have True Barbecue and True 2 Barbecue, one on each side. There's two bars on the left side of the beach as well, one in the regular beach area, but then one in Serenity Bay. On Castaway Key, they have Serenity Bay, which is a tram stop away. Here, Serenity Bay, which is the adults 18 and older, only adults can go to this area. It's just basically the end of the family beach, which I think is interesting. But in Serenity Bay, you have Serenity Barbecue, which is an adult-only eating area. Mainly have the same options as True, but a couple of different options as well. And then you also have a bar specifically for Serenity Bay. Additionally, you have the Serenity Bay private adult-only cabanas. The family beach stretches the entire length of what I'm calling the main beach area. After you get off the tram, for the most part, the entirety of that beach is the family beach area, save for the Serenity Beach section at the very end on the left. Whatever, if you're on Serenity Bay, if you're on the family beach, whatever it is, the beaches and the blue water, it's absolutely beautiful. It really is stunning. I think one issue having Serenity Bay close to the family beaches is it might get a little loud. Kids might go over there because it's not a true hard debarkation there. But I think that's the nicest stretch of beach that they have access to. The issue you have on Castaway is You don't get the family beach, so sometimes there could be seaweed. It could be a little colder over on Serenity Bay. The tide could be a little different, right? Here, it's kind of everyone gets the same incredible beach access. Serenity Bay is just a little bit further away, so trying to be a little bit more secluded in that. But regardless, blue water, lovely sand, really, really, really stunning no matter where you are. There's also elevated boardwalks that connect everything together. Um, I love these boardwalks. It's really easy. It's a great, nice walking path. But they also serve another purpose. Not only is it to get you from point A to point B, it's to protect the select natural areas so that guests aren't just trudging through them or they didn't have to lay down concrete, right? Things are still growing around it. So it'll almost look like certain areas around the boardwalk is unfinished. And it's not that it's unfinished, it's nature. That's what it is. It's just the natural resources of it all coming to play, trying not to disturb it as much as possible. They're great. I think the only issue with the boardwalks is sometimes there's not always a straightforward path from, here to there. Sometimes it has to wind because it's winding around select natural areas. They're trying to protect as many areas as they can while also making it as convenient as possible without disrupting those areas. And this is kind of this circuitous boardwalk journey that we sometimes go on. But to piggyback off that, there's also plenty of nature trails. There's ones to caves, there's ones to the lighthouse itself, which, newsflash, there's not an actual lighthouse at Lighthouse Point. So when your cruise ship pulls in, you're not going to see a lighthouse. Seems like false advertising to me. And this false advertising on the Bahamians, because this was called Lighthouse Point long before Disney came. Disney just added the Lookout Key moniker to it. It is a light station, which is not a lighthouse. It's not tall like a lighthouse. It's just like, I don't know, it's like on a rock. It's a big light, but you can't really see it from anywhere. Anyways, I'm just trying to manage expectations for you, and hopefully you won't be as disappointed as I was finding out there's no actual lighthouse. But there are plenty of nature trails. There's ones to caves, even that people were raving about. I didn't go on any of them yet. Not all the trails are open, but they should be open soon. Overall, the entire property is stunning. It's stunning. I spent a lot of time in a private family cabana. Those go for around $1,500. They include soft drinks, snacks, servers. You can order things like drinks and other things from a tablet, and a server will bring it to you. It is a steep price. I know that on an already expensive vacation. We had a large group of people that were splitting it. So if you ever want to do that, go in with a couple cabins. You can split it, and it works out very economically speaking. They do go very, very fast on Castaway. I assume they'll go very fast here at Lookout as well. They're very nice, though the family cabanas are right next to the pier. So when you get off, or when you complete your voyage down the pier, you go right and you get to the family cabanas. If you want to explore anything else at Lookout, whether it's Sebastian's Cove or you just want to see what the family beach looks like or whatever, you'll have to hop on the tram there. The family cabanas, they do have their own dining destination with many similar offerings to True True over at the main family beach area. But they have some additions too. They have some made to order things like steak, fish, those sorts of things. And they have two bars specifically for the family cabana section. So it's totally self contained, bathrooms over there, food, drinks. You don't have to go to the other area. You can totally just chill there. It was beautiful to stay there. It's much quieter. It's much more secluded, obviously. It's the only area where you can stand on the beach and see the cruise ship that you came in on. We did notice that the water there at the family cabanas was much choppier than over at the family beach or Serenity Bay. Time will tell if that's normal, if that's going to be a normal thing, or if it was just a weather thing, the tide, whatever. But that's that. I spent a lot of time on the family beach, at the family cabanas, sorry. Um, but I did walk around the entire property. I spent, I would say, half of the day looking at the family beach area, what I call the main beach area, Serenity Bay, True True Barbecue, True True 2 Barbecue, all of those things, probably about half of the day. And the other half of the day I spent at the family cabanas on the front portion of this destination. So I split my time well. The biggest complaint that I've heard folks make, and I was complaining about this too, the biggest complaint next to the long pier were the flies. When you're walking around, you would never see a fly. You weren't disturbed by a fly at all. But eating something or drinking something sweet, flies would flock everywhere to everyone. This was a huge Complaint. I don't know if the conservation initiatives will impact the ability to remove the flies, but there has to be a way to reduce them, just for a quality of life sort of thing when you're over there. But that's something you're not really able to account for until you have 1,000 people with 1,000 people's worth of food coming to the island there, right? Maybe you see one fly here or there when you bring in some food, but when you bring in a mass amount of people, that's really the only time you're going to realize these sorts of things. It's why John Taffer in Bar Rescue puts on the stress test, right? Because that's the only way you're going to know when the pressure cracks, when things crack. And that's really what it is, right? It was a fantastic day. Fantastic first day on a beautiful island, but there were, of course, some hiccups. Over time, logistics, processes, they're going to get better. The crew is going to become more familiar, more informed as they get off the ship more frequently. And hopefully, Disney will handle the fly situation. I will say this: I was so happy, so happy that I went. And most, if not all, people I talked with shared the same sentiments. Those sentiments: a beautiful area, some kinks to work through, confidence that Disney will figure it out. Hopefully, it'll be better in a month's time. Because in a month's time, I'll be back at Lookout Key. And I'm so very excited for that because next month I'm going back on the Disney Magic, which I really enjoyed on my 3-night cruise. I'm going back on the Disney Magic in July for a 5-night cruise. During that 5-night cruise, not only will we be stopping at Lookout Key, but I'll also be stopping at Castaway Key, which is very exciting. Getting to stop at both private destinations from Disney Cruise Line. I'm so looking forward to that. When I do go back to Lookout Key, I'm going to be looking for what improvements have been made. I'm going to be spending the entire time on the main beach area, maybe splitting time between Serenity Bay and the family beach area, trying out True True 2 and True True Barbecue, right? Checking out all sorts of things like that, the things that I didn't get to the first time around because it is such a massive piece of property. So there's plenty to look forward to, plenty I'm excited for. I'm very, very excited to go back. And I think that really kind of sums up the first impression sort of things. I came off the island knowing that there were kinks, there were things that need to be worked through, but I'm going back excited to see what's been improved, but also excited to see that beach that I've already experienced, which was absolutely beautiful. And listen, I'm excited because any excuse I can get to wear this sick fedora that I got now, I'm here for it. I am here for it. When I do go back again, I'll be looking for more tips, more tricks to share with you about Lookout Key. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about Lookout Key, send them my way, Connor, CONOR, at vacationkingdoms.com. If you ever want to book a Disney Cruise Line vacation to Lookout Key, I'm your guy. I can help with that. Email me again, Connor, CONOR, at vacationkingdoms.com. As we're getting things going here at Vacation Kingdoms with all these new podcasts that we're launching, like Ahoy here, it would be very, very, very helpful if you could subscribe to the show, rate and review us in Apple or Spotify. That would mean the world to me if you did that. Please take just a couple minutes of your time to do so. I would greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate that. That's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for listening to Ahoy, a Disney cruise planning podcast from Vacation Kingdoms. I've been Connor Brown, and until next time, keep living the dream, and I'll see you real soon.